After Paul was arrested in Jerusalem, he has spent one night in the barracks. The commander wants to find out exactly why Paul is being accused by the Jews. So now he releases him and orders the chief priests and all the members of the Sanhedrin to assemble. Then he brings Paul and has him stand before them. Paul begins, "Brothers, I have always lived before God with a clear conscience." Instantly, Ananias, the high priest, commands those close to Paul to slap him on the mouth. Then Paul says to him, "God will strike you, you whitewashed wall. You sit there to judge me according to the law, yet you yourself violate the law by commanding that I be struck." Those who are standing near Paul say, "How dare you insult God's high priest?" Paul replies, "Brothers, I didn't realize that he is the high priest, for it is written, 'Do not speak evil about the ruler of your people.'" It is good to admit when you do something wrong, right? That is what is needed to be forgiven. That is why we also need to confess our sins to the Lord. Paul knows that some members of the High Council are Sadducees and some are Pharisees. So he calls out, "Brothers, I am a Pharisee, like my father. I stand on trial because of the hope of the resurrection of the dead." The council begins arguing among themselves, as the Sadducees do not believe in resurrection or angels or spirits, but the Pharisees believe in all of these. Now these men are shouting against each other. In the great uproar that follows, the commander is afraid for Paul's safety. He orders his soldiers to rescue Paul by force and bring him back to the barracks. That night the Lord appears to Paul and says, "Take courage! Just as you have testified about me in Jerusalem, so you must also testify in Rome." Paul knows the Jews can't do anything against him when the Lord doesn't allow it. What an encouragement! Also for us, God is always in control. The next morning, a group of more than 40 Jews come together. They make an oath not to eat or drink until they have killed Paul. They go to the chief priests and the elders and say, "We have made an oath not to eat anything until we have killed Paul. Now then, you and the high council should ask the commander to bring Paul back to the council again, on the pretext of wanting more information about his case. We are ready to kill him on the way before he gets here." But Paul's nephew, his sister's son, hears of their plan. He goes into the barracks and tells Paul. Then Paul calls one of the Roman officers and says, "Take this young man to the commander. He has something important to tell him." The officer does what Paul has asked. After hearing about the plot, the commander dismisses the young man and warns, "Don't tell anyone that you have reported this to me." Then he calls two of his officers and orders, "Get 200 soldiers ready to leave for Caesarea at 9 o'clock tonight. Also take 200 spearmen and 70 horsemen. Provide horses for Paul to ride and get him safely to Governor Felix." Do you see God protects Paul? Remember his promise. Paul shall share the gospel in Rome. The commander gives the soldiers a letter for the governor. In the letter is written, "Claudius Lysias, to His Excellency Governor Felix, greetings. This man was seized by the Jews, and they were about to kill him. But I came with my troops and rescued him, for I had learned that he is a Roman citizen. I wanted to know why they were accusing him, so I brought him to their Sanhedrin. I found that the accusation had to do with questions about their law, but there was no charge against him that deserved death or imprisonment. When I was informed of a plot to be carried out against the man, I sent him to you at once. I also ordered his accusers to present to you their case against him." That night the soldiers escort Paul as far as Antipatris. They return to the barracks the next morning, while the horsemen take Paul on to Caesarea. When they arrive there, they deliver the letter to the governor and hand Paul over to him. Felix reads the letter and asks what province Paul is from. Learning that he is from Cilicia, he says, "I will hear your case when your accusers get here." Then he orders that Paul be kept under guard in Herod's palace. Paul is not a free man, but he is safe under God's protection. When God is with you, it doesn't matter where you are. Close to him is always the best, also for you.